Like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know.
Come on board, come on board. Gonna give you some insight. Won't take too much of your time.
It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
Welcome for those. Come on in. Learn some insights, what I've learned in this journey of mine of diversity, inclusion, and equity.
It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is.
Welcome to those out there in LinkedIn land and in Facebook land for my thoughts on what I've gone through for the last month as I pursued this journey of diversity, equity, and inclusion with the Black veterans for Black History Month and for Veterans Council and Veterans. One of the things we did at Veterans Council and Veterans, we decided to adopt a diversity, equity, inclusion platform, and we wanted to walk the walk and not do the talk. But what I want to do for this afternoon is just to tell you kind of things that I've learned as I walk this walk. First, I had to be honest. I was a little nervous about doing this. You know, God kind of put this on my heart because I kept seeing all this stuff going on before the election and after the election, all this racial stuff going on, racial rioting, really divisive talk, black against whites. Everybody was shouting, but nobody was listening. And I said to God, God, and you got to be careful when you ask God something because he's going to give you an answer. What can I do? And he said, create this event. I want you to create this event. And the one way you know when God is talking to you is when he does that God wink, that God wink. Anybody out there know what I mean? When God gives you that wink, that means that he is behind you 100%. And he was. I was pleasantly surprised on how many, as I put the word out, I got so many African-American Black veterans family said, yes, I want to do this. We need to do this. And I said, whoa. And this became a pleasant experience from that point on. I was a little nervous again because, again, a lot of African Americans that are out there or in leadership positions, oftentimes their boss does not look like them, and what you may look at something as good may not be considered good for them, and so you really take a risk. Veterans Council Veteran is racial neutral. We're not an organization that's on specific for African Americans or for Hispanics, whatever. It's for all veterans and their families. So when I decided to step to this, I knew that I was stepping in some landmines, and a lot of it didn't have a lot to do with me. It's what you thought, what people thought when they saw this. So I went anyway. So I did this I wanted to give a comprehensive picture of the Black veteran and their families. And so to do that, I created 6 themes for this. And so I created a theme for the Black combat veteran, both male and female. I created a theme for the Black veteran and military sexual trauma. Created a theme for the families. Research, because one thing about research is that when it comes to racism, it's so much about perception that if you don't have data behind you, people can always discount what you would call as being a racist action, whatever. So data, and eventually I wanted a town hall. And the town hall, you guys who witnessed it, was robust because I wanted to have more than one voice, and I wanted to see more than just one Black person talking. I think that's not as fruitful or productive than if you have more of African Americans talking. So one of the things I did learn is that the first thing I want to do is, not only the social media and what medium am I going to promote this on, but then just starting with the design, the flyers. What is the flyer going to look like? And I went to a lot of, the regular platform like Canvas and Shutterstock and all those guys, and they didn't have that many pictures of Black veterans, and they definitely have any pictures of Black veterans, a Black female and a Black male together. So that was interesting. So I finally found somebody to do the slide, and this is what I came with here. I wanted to have again, even with this, I couldn't find a picture with a Black male and a Black female veteran, and I think that is itself is telling of how we even within the gender we are separated when it comes to the black male the Black community. So I finally I talked to my friend Rodney gave me a person who could probably understand, and this is what I come with. So this is much harder than you think. And then when I had so many people, I tried, how can I put all these people on one slide? But so I did. So that was one of my biggest challenges, was just trying to create a flyer that would encompass what I was trying to do. Then it's all about recruiting. And I'll tell you, my first recruit, and it was exciting, is that you see here when I did the first one, 1st of February, the episode was called the Black Women Combat Veteran Mental Health Providers. And I wanted to specifically pick the Black female combat veterans, just getting that space that people are not used to hearing. And I went out and I put it out, and I got Yes, I'll Do It from Kimberly Molenbrook and Gwendolyn Crowley and Lakeisha Jones. And what we did was, because I wanted to make sure that when we went out there that we were kind of together, we weren't fighting each other, whatever. We had a couple of sessions beforehand to make sure that we were comfortable with each other. And we learned so much together. We had a really good time together. Kimberly was, all these ladies worked their butt off, and to find that one special time was interesting because, all of them were in different time zones. Kimberly was a different time zone. Gwendolyn and Lakeisha were all in different time zones. So to try to get everybody together in a different time zone, that was challenging enough. But the fact that these ladies were willing to do that was enough to sit there and inspire me to do this. So we did. We talked. We had a good time. We learned a lot of things in common that we had in common, and some things we didn't have in common. So that was the first event that started off this event. And I've learned so much about the combat female veterans and how they look at things. And one of the conversations we had with Gwendolyn, we talked about military sexual trauma, and kind of find out that Lakeisha experienced military sexual trauma, and Gwendolyn's daughter had an experience. And so that was something that you just don't hear about unless you come together. You learn so much more when you come together. Then the next event that we had was the military sexual trauma. And so these ladies here were very insightful. I knew Tiffany Davis, who was a retired Army, and then Lakita, who was just about ready to retire from the Air Force. And we had a really good conversation. You learned a lot about what exactly the Black female veteran goes through when they're military sexual trauma survivors. And a lot of times, because they're in where they're in, their voice, because they're Black women, their voice is often muted when we talk to when you have a room full of white women, and there's only 2 or 3 of them. So generally speaking, when all said and done, they ignore the Black woman and her military sexual trauma, and they gravitate to the whites. And that's just a common thing. But that's what I really noticed most, is that they didn't have a voice. Their voice was often muted, and that was something that Veterans Council veterans, we want to try to make a change in that their voices can be heard as well. Then finally, I did this one here, the Black males, and you look at Dapper Robert. Now the interesting about this one here is that Robert was still employed by the VA, and Ulysses was just finished retired from the VA. Most of these guys are retired first officer, and then Purnell, who's up in Orlando, doing this thing with the underserved community in Orlando. And so getting these guys together, that was an interesting conversation, because you really see Black veterans in this space working together. So we had to really learn to work together. The most impactful thing I thought was when we talked about how did it make you feel when you saw George Lloyd being die in front of your eyes. And I tell you, I'll never forget when you kept telling me, retired first sergeant combat veteran, you're not going to silence me, you're not going to censor me. And that's one of the things we got to be aware of also, because sometimes we silence each other. And so that was a very interesting time and a great opportunity we had as well. So then finally I said, I want to do the families, right? Because you really hear in the media, especially, about how does all this stuff affect the Black veterans and their families. It's the interesting thing about when you're in the military and Black veteran, when you're in active duty, you really don't. It's really not as important to be connected to a black community, white community, because your veterans and sisters around you are your family. But when you get out, society tends to try to put you back into that pigeonhole. So a lot of the African Americans, when they leave the society, try to put them in the black community, and then the Hispanics try to put you in the Hispanic community. Something we're not. That's one of our most difficulties when we start to transition, because we're not accepted in the white community, because the white community is not really used to us, and we're really not totally endorsed by the black community, because they have a different perception on the Black value when it comes to being a veteran. So that's one of the things I learned with these counselors who are experts in the family, from Dr. Kinsler, Dr. Perry. I had a little technical difficulty with Michael Mays and Dominique, but we'll try to fix that in the next upcoming. But the family is very important, because that's something you really ever hear about, is how does all this stuff affect the Black veteran family. And you can sit there, and I tell you, if you look at a lot of these, what I call these black legacy organizations, and I'm talking about the NAACP, and I'm talking about the HBCUs and the Urban League and that kind of stuff, you really see them advocate for us as far as the Black veteran community and some of the concerns that we have as being Black veterans out in the community. We feel like we have no voice. And I know there's a couple of organizations out there that say they cater to African Americans. But one of our challenges with the Black organizations is that they tend to want to work just by themselves. We have not learned how to sit there and include more and more people, because you have more of a collective voice if we work together than if we work separately. So I think that's important too, that all these Black organizations out there, but they all work in their own single little voice and only me. What you see out there, and what concerns me most about all this stuff, is that because we don't sit there and because we don't have this collective voice and that kind of stuff, oftentimes we find ourselves out there on our own, including in the Black community. I can tell you something that I said, just because I always say, everybody say racism, and because I didn't grow up in a racist environment, I grew up in a global environment. You know, my best friends were white and Spanish and one neighbor, because I was military. So I grew up in a military environment. We were very diverse in the military environment. So my environment was different. Two-parent home, safe community. So not all African Americans actually understand me, and vice versa. So for me, I think it's more tribal and clan than it is racial, because there's some Black successful organizations out there that don't trickle down to the Black community. And there's some white people out there that will definitely give and care about that. So for me, my tribe does not have to look like me. My tribe just have to have belief like me. And that's important. I tell anybody out there that don't sit there and identify, don't do the same as they're saying about whites. Don't judge a person just for the color. And that's for Black as well. Just because they're Black don't mean they're always good. Just because they're white don't mean they're always bad. You got to sit there and use a lot more than just the color to see if this person is good enough, good fit for you as you move forward. That's something I definitely want to embark on. So finally, I had the research again. And against more technical difficulty, we had Dr. Harlan Harold, and we had Tayana. I had to tape her differently because she could not make the broadcast. And the most reason why this research is more important, because I talked to the lead captain, the lead researcher for the behavioral health. I'll go to that right now. I'll go to it right now on this one here. And this right here. A second, I'll get to it right now. So I'm going to the screen here, and what I want you to see is that I talked to the lady her name is Kate McGrew, and she's the one that was the lead researcher for this research. It's called the Behavioral Health for Minority Active Duty Service Member. So that's important. First of all, I'll tell you something very important on this report. First of all, it looks like when I'm Googling, I can see something that looks like me. That looks like me, but not all the way. Because minority, oftentimes the Black veteran loses himself when the word minority is there, because minorities can mean everybody, right? You Black person, the Black veteran loses themselves when they all dumped into minority pool. They can lose themselves when they're all dumped into the Black, the people of color pool. We just lose ourselves. But we still looked at it. Even with this thing here that was, and I said it was led by Kate McGraw, but I asked Kate, were there any Black researchers in part of this? I don't see any in here, but Black researchers. So we got to do a better job when it comes to the Black researchers as well. So this is one of the things. Another thing I thought was very, very important that we need that why it's important is extremism in the ranks is a threat. Now, the Secretary of Defense, Dr. General Austin, came out and said that this is a threat. But what he did not fail to say is that was the racial extremism, not just extremism, because me being a military intelligence, we always fight against extremists. But to specifically say the racial extremist is very more important than just say extremism, because it's too broad. I brought up a topic. And another thing I want to bring to you, Hyla, is that how do we look at things? So again, here we are, it's Black History Month, and we look at what the title of the Military Times. They reported as white troops, especially women, tend to have more mental health concerns. Again, we are lost again. The Black veteran is lost. The Black military is lost in the sauce, because this title is not for us, even though they're talking a lot about us. It's for the white people, and that's why we lose. We lose visibility. We lose our voice if we're not the one that's part of this, part of the solution, part of the problem. So I'm hoping that we do a better job of this in the future going forward, that some people will sit there and take up the mantle on this and sit there and make sure that our voice is also heard. And that's important as well. So I tell you what, I've learned a lot in this whole thing here. I've learned a lot. I've learned that there are a lot of us out there that something that we really need to push forward. Veterans Council will continue to push the equity and the inclusion and diversity. We have a committee of that now. We're going to start, you'll pretty soon see Hispanic Heritage Month that we'll be a part of, and also the LGBTQ community as well that we'll be a part of as well. So just want to get you guys know that. And last but not least, I want to sit there and find out, I want to know what happened to the Alwyn Cash, who this veteran was supposed to be going for the Medal of Honor. I have not heard anything about him ever since then. So Allen, his name was Alwyn Cash. Let me show you something real quick if I can find him. Okay. Coming up right now. Please have some patience. So finally, what I'm hoping we do is that we talk about Alwyn Cash. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me put it up on the screen here. Here. This guy. Whatever happened to Alwyn Cash? Alwyn Cash was supposed to be getting the Medal of Honor during last year, when it was so sexy to be for the black veteran, the black people, and then all of a sudden now we don't hear nothing about him. What happened to Allen? We need to do something about that. Make sure Allen is we have not forgotten Allen. So I need you guys out there, guys and ladies, just doing the right thing, and let's re-energize Alwyn Cash of getting the Medal of Honor. It's the right thing to do. It's nothing about being black and white. It's a veteran that died, that wasn't a veteran, who died to defend this country, and all of a sudden has been forgotten by him. So I don't care if you're a Democrat, I don't care if you're a Republican, I don't care if you're independent. This is the right thing to do. Let's re-energize media out there and find out why the hell Alwyn Cash has not gotten the Medal of Honor. Well, that's all I have to do for you on a Sunday. I appreciate you guys taking the time out on a Sunday to listen to what I have to say and my insights on this event. I hope we'll see more of that in the future, but we're going to pivot. We're going to talk more about the military sexual trauma. That's our next event that's coming up. It's coming up as well. So Sharisha from last one. Here we go. This year, we're coming up on our verse. There may be some changes to that. We may end up instead of just picking one day out of the month to do this, we may just change it and have 4 or 5 themes throughout the month versus just one theme. So stay tuned. You'll probably see something come out on the 1st, 2nd of April when it comes to the military sexual trauma month in April. So until then, this is Tony Williams from Veterans Council of Veterans, giving my thoughts on what we've gone through for this whole month of Black History Month with our theme called The Black Veterans, Their Families, and Mental Wellness. Until then, this is Tony Williams. See you guys later.
Then I go to my brother. And I say, brother,